Please join me for a scenic coastal walk with breathtaking cliff-top views, beaches, hills and picturesque settlements along the way. I'm Florian and this is Walks and Pubs. This time I'm taking the number 50 Purbeck Breezer bus, which goes from Bournemouth to Swanage. It's taking me and the other passengers to the famous Poole suburb of Sandbanks. Remaining on the bus, we are boarding the Sandbanks ferry. This chain ferry carries us across the bit of water between the Sandbanks and Isle of Purbeck peninsulas that's the entrance to Poole Harbour. What we are seeing here is the harbour side of the ferry. On the other side there are Poole Bay and the English Channel. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please give me a round of applause for making this 12-minute journey without getting seasick. From the Shell Bay ferry bus stop, it's 100 yards to South Haven Point near Studland, which is marked by this sculpture. I'm at the end of the South West Coast Path here, which is one of England and Wales's 16 national trails. It runs around most of the English southwest peninsula and through the counties of Somerset, Devon, Cornwall and Dorset. Its length of 630 miles makes it the UK's longest national trail, and according to the charity that runs it, it's also the nation's best loved one. Let's go! For me, this is the start of my walk. I'll be following the Southwest Coast Path in the reverse direction for most of the journey. For the first 2.5 miles, the path follows 3 stretches of beaches known as Shell Bay Beach, Knoll Beach, which includes an area for naturists, and Middle Beach. To the right of my path, there's the Studland Heath National Nature Reserve. This area is home to all 6 native British reptiles, which is a rarity. These are the sand lizard, smooth snake, common lizard, grass snake, slow worm and the adder, which is Britain's only venomous snake. Additionally, beautiful birds such as nightjars and Dartford warblers live here, and there are many wildflowers to be seen. In the center of the heath there's a lake called Little Sea, and there's a heather walk that allows walkers to explore this beautiful area. Across Poole Bay, parts of Poole and Bournemouth are visible, and after a while the Old Harry Rocks appear in the distance, where I'll arrive later on this walk. I noticed these little birds running along the water here. After walking on the naturist beach part of Knoll Beach and arriving at this sign, sadly it was time for me to get dressed again. I'm joking, I left my clothes on as it's not mandatory to get undressed here. But if you like to, give it a go. If you'd like to avoid this area, you can follow the National Trust's heather walk through the dunes instead. Here we can see that the heath doesn't only provide a home for many animals, but also serves as a natural barrier against coastal erosion. I've arrived at the end of Knoll Beach. It's a Sunday in May, and despite the cloudy weather that we've had so far, it's quite busy here. If you need some additional entertainment, you could pop in here. Knoll Beach has a small bookshop that's located in this beach hut. And off we go for our final walk on beaches today. Straight ahead, the footpath is closed, so I'm having a minor detour here. This wasn't a big deal, and after a few minutes I am again finding myself on the Southwest Coast Path, but at an elevated point. I'm now looking forward to seeing Fort Henry. Before, let's meet these sleeping pigs who are enjoying this nice day as the weather is getting better. I've arrived at Fort Henry, which is a Second World War observation bunker with walls, a floor and a ceiling all 3 feet thick. It was named after the home base of the Canadian engineers who built it, and it allowed top military officials to observe training exercises in preparation for the Allied invasion of mainland Europe. About 2 months before the D-Day landings, King George VI, Winston Churchill, General Bernard Montgomery, and American General Dwight D. Eisenhower all stood at this exact location, watching their forces prepare for the upcoming battles. On the way from Fort Henry to Statland Village, the weather's brightened up and it's getting warmer. Upon arriving in Statland, there's a sign pointing to the local church. I'm going to leave the southwest coast path to take a look. It's a Sunday and there's a church service going on, so I decided it would be bad publicity to enter the building and start putting my camera into everyone's faces. Nevertheless, this Romanesque Norman church has been standing here for a long time, and in fact it's been about 1000 years. Before that, an earlier Saxon church stood at this place. As it's not far from the sea, it's named after St. Nicholas, who is the patron saint of fishermen and many others. This is probably one of the oldest and best preserved Norman churches in the country, and the next time I visit I'll certainly have a look inside. Back on the southwest coast path I'm passing this beautiful country pub called the Banks Arms, which gives me another good reason to return to Statland. Just look at the view from the beer garden. I'm following the signs to my next destination, the Old Harry Rocks. From this point onwards, we'll find the most stunning views of today's journey, starting with a mile of coast path between Manor Road in Statland and the Old Harry Rocks. Here we're getting the most amazing views across the Statland and Poole Bays. If the conditions are good, it's even possible to see the Isle of Wight, which is about 15 miles from here. Lucky people might even spot dolphins, who are frequent visitors to these waters in the warmer months of the year. I've arrived at the Old Harry Rocks. The surrounding area seems ideal for a picnic, but as I had some food earlier, I'll directly go to see the rocks and the coastline. There's a brave swimmer down there making his way through all the seagrass. What a legend! Here I am at one of the English South Coast's most famous landmarks, the Old Harry Rocks. They're a series of chalk stacks composed of pure white chalk, which have been formed over millions of years through the erosion of the cliffs. Thousands of years ago, the Old Harry Rocks were part of a line of chalk hills that went as far as the rocks that are now known as the Needles on the Isle of Wight. The single sea stack of chalk named Old Harry once even had a wife, but unfortunately erosion caused her to tumble into the sea in 1896. Legend has it that the rocks were named after a local pirate named Harry Pay. Another theory says that the rocks were named after the devil, as Old Harry is one of his nicknames. I neither want to run into the devil nor into pirates, so I'll better make my way towards Swanage. The Old Harry Rocks mark the starting point of the Jurassic Coast, which goes all the way from here to Exmouth in Devon. The Jurassic Coast gets its name from the geological period named Jurassic, but in fact the site also includes rocks from the Triassic and Cretaceous periods. This 95-mile stretch of coastline is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and its rich geological and paleontological history make it a magnet for both tourists and scientists. I'm walking up Bella Down now, which will give me additional views over the Dorset countryside and coastlines. Although the word down might sound like a rather low area, the down in many places in England comes from an Old English word that means hill or mountain, and that's what we are going to see now, an area of rolling grassy hills with sea views. Walking up the hill, Swanage is getting closer and closer. Up on Bella Down we're getting even better views of Statland, Statland Bay and Poole Bay to the north, and Swanage Bay to the south. Let's have a look at Swanage first. This must be one of the best views of the coastal town with a population of about 10,000. Swanage has a steam railway and a Victorian pier, which is 1.7 miles in the distance, and we are going to see more of this lovely place soon. Approximately 200 yards from here, on the other side of the hill, there's Stadland in the distance, and we can see Stadland Bay, Poole Bay and even Poole and Bournemouth. Bournemouth Pier is 6.4 miles in the distance. I can also see the starting point of my walk. This has been a little bit of walking already. I want to continue to enjoy the panoramic views from the top of Ballard Down, so I'll leave the southwest coast path for a while. This path leads me through a herd of cows. If you've watched my Wareham to Cove Castle video, you'll know I previously had problems getting around a couple of cows. Not this time. While cows can be perfectly calm animals, it's important to keep your distance. It might not be a good idea to fly a kite right next to a herd of cows with your kids, especially if you've got a loose dog with you, and especially when the cows have their own young ones with them. Cows don't like dogs and can be protective of their calves and get aggressive. I'm saying this because people have been seriously injured and even killed by cows as a result of cattle attacks. For advice on how to keep safe in the countryside and your responsibilities as a visitor, please read the Countryside Code. I'm on my way down to the valley and can't wait to arrive in Swanage. Here I am, and after a short while I'm back on the southwest coast path, passing this church and later arriving at Swanage Beach. The weather's improved a lot compared to my first beach visit in the morning, and the beach and promenade are bustling with activity. Right before reaching this point, I tripped over a cobblestone slightly sticking out of the pavement and bumped into it so hard with my right foot that it really hurt. Later I found out that I didn't only have a hematoma on my right big toe, but also on the left one, with no idea what I had done there. But if you like this video, or if you just want to show some compassion, this is the moment when you should hit the subscribe button, and I know it was worth it. After I had passed the Prince Albert Gardens, I found a place with nice views of Swanage Pier. The 642 feet long pier was built between 1895 and 1897. It's mainly built of timber, and as you can probably imagine, maintenance works have to be carried out regularly in order to prevent the pier from falling into disrepair. While in 1940 the landward end of the pier was deliberately destroyed as an anti-invasion precaution and replaced after the war, the pier did fall into disrepair between 1966 and 1994, when the Swanage Pier Trust acquired control of the pier with the aim of restoring it. This has obviously been a success, but despite the many hours of voluntary work, the Trust still needs to raise about £200,000 per year to prevent the pier from falling into disrepair and dereliction again. Let's hope they'll be able to continue their amazing work. Another noteworthy site of Swanage is the Wellington Clock Tower. This building was designed as a monument to the Duke of Wellington and once stood at the southern end of London Bridge. By 1867 it was deemed an obstruction to the London traffic and was subsequently demolished. Thanks to the Swanage contractor and businessman George Bird, it was brought here where it was reconstructed. And now guess what this is? I finally arrived at Peveril Point, which is my official endpoint of this journey. And what a great journey it's been. I'll go on to the pub after this and from there to Swanage railway station to catch the bus back to Bournemouth. But first I'm going to enjoy the view and the sense of achievement. There's a National Coast Watch station at Peveril Point that's entirely run by volunteers who were involved in the handling of 30 serious incidents only in the last year. Now I'm going to walk my last bit of South West Coast path for today before I hopefully get my deserved pint at the pub. From this point onwards it is of course possible to walk even further on the coast path. I saw this section with my friend Kevin when we walked from Swanage Beach to Durlston Castle, which is famous for the Great Globe and the colonies of guillemots who breed on the cliffs in spring and early summer. Thank you, Kevin, for taking me on this walk and granting me permission to use some of your photos. We took this 3.6 mile walk in September 2023, and for the exact route please go to walks-and-pubs.uk/walks/2023/09-05. Don't worry, there's a link in the description of this video. I'm heading the other way now as I'm eager to get to the pub. My destination is the White Horse Inn, which isn't far to go. It's the final match day of the 2023-24 Premier League season, and there's quite a lot going on because of this. I decided to go for a pint of lager today. After this, the final thing I need to do is walk from the pub to Swanage railway station. I even got a glimpse of the old steam train before I hopped on the open top bus back to Bournemouth. And here's the route that I walked. My journey started at the Shell Bay Ferry bus stop. After having a look at the sculpture that marks the end of the South West Coast path, I started to follow the path in the reverse direction. For the first 2.5 miles I walked along beaches, first with Shell Bay and then with Statland Bay to my left. To my right I got views of the Statland Heath National Nature Reserve. Upon reaching Middle Beach I made my way up to the car park, and after making my way through it, I turned left towards Fort Henry. After becoming another important historical figure to have looked at Statland Bay from Fort Henry, I continued towards Statland Village. In Statland I had a look at St. Nicholas Church before continuing on the South West Coast path. Shortly after passing the Banks Arms pub, I turned left towards the Old Harry Rocks. It took another mile of walking to get there. I then hiked up Ballard Down. When I arrived at the top, I left the South West Coast path and continued along the ridge for a short while before descending into the valley towards Swanage. Returning to the South West Coast path, my next goal was to get to Swanage Beach. I took a stroll along the promenade and saw the town square, and shortly after passed Swanage Pier. After passing the Wellington Clock Tower, it wasn't long until I arrived at the end point of today's journey, which was Peveril Point. All that was left for me to do was head to the White Horse Inn and reward myself with a pint of lager. After this, it was time to go to Swanage railway station and catch the bus back home. This journey was 9.5 miles long. That's it for today. Thanks for watching and I'm hoping to see you soon. Cheers!